don't know you need trust until you really need it, and then it's too late. So it's better to just operate from a first principle standpoint of having trust rather than saying, oh, I'll get to trust when I've lost it. It's too late then.
Welcome to The Edge for Tomorrow. I'm your host, Rose Reed, and today I'm joined by Brendan Joyce. He's betting that blockchain is the missing trust layer for a world run by AI agents. Brendan, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here. Looking forward to our conversation today.
You've watched AI go from a tool that some people can use to kind of ubiquitous in the environment, and also like in our headlines every day. People still have a distance to not just the value proposition of blockchain, but it's almost as if they want to understand how it works before they can understand the value of it, which is funny because it's not like any of us go to an ATM and we're like, no, tell me how you work before you give me the money. How do you address this education level when it comes to blockchain and how you describe it? Have you changed the way that you have decided to explain your value proposition?
Wonderful question. I like to think, because I do hail from a storytelling background, that oftentimes story or language is our source code. And so if you're trying to get sort of societal wide buy into a concept and you are not telling a very convincing story, you're probably already missing the point or missing a conversion right off the gate. So with the blockchain aspect, you got to tell the right story. And unfortunately, part of the problem is the wrong story has been told. Prior to, I would say, 2017, 2018, it meant people who were focused on cryptography, on owning your own data, on owning your own components of the stack so that you didn't need to trust any external party. You could just trust the protocol, which was a trustless protocol. Why? Because it's a chain of blocks that are verified by everybody, hence blockchain. Then, unfortunately, crypto became this cultural synonym for degeneracy, gambling that was on things like meme coins and live streaming people in cages on trying to pump up a token launched on pump.fun. That is a environment globally for transactions and data and infrastructure that we can all trust, not because it is handled by such wonderful people that it's the old Google, don't be evil. It is the actual underlying infrastructure can't be evil. Harvard economist Nathan Nunn pointed out a while ago that the number one determinant of investment within a region is contract enforceability. And in a world where code is law and contracts auto enforce based on the parameters that they were originally programmed with, now you can actually make the entire world a place worth investing. And that is going to create all new types of opportunities. Initially, what our thesis was at Pakt for sort of outside in adoption, which was ascending nations. But I now recognize that while the outside in thesis was correct, in that you're not going to replace JP Morgan or Bank of America or Blackstone or BlackRock or any of these massive entities because they have so much inertia and they're really dug in. It's really where blockchain is going to be needed is places that did not have that level of infrastructure. I'm now recognizing that the outside in approach is not outside in on the planet, but it's outside in almost on a species level. And this is where AI shows up. The real power users of blockchain hopefully will be humans in some sense, but more likely, and as Brian Armstrong at Coinbase has been pointing out, it's going to be AI agents.
And how do you explain, like at a dinner party, why trust is so essential? And how do you explain how it's missing and the impact of what you gain when you can actually implement trust?
So when we were building our company Pakt, the very first year or so, co-founder was one of the co-founders is Nigerian, brought a whole Nigerian team. We lived in Rwanda and Kenya for a year. You don't need to explain to people who come from some challenged backgrounds like that trust is essential in the infrastructure. For instance, if you have your money in a Nigerian bank and the central bank of Nigeria decides that they're going to change the exchange rate for the access to your money, or this happens in Lebanon, not to pick on any region in particular, this happens all over the world. You don't need to sell people on having infrastructure you can trust. But again, in the United States, I put my ATM card in, I take it out, and great. All right, I paid for it. We trust the system. Regardless of political affiliation, I think that, every single poll shows that there is less faith in institutions than there has been in generations. While that is a crisis, crises don't necessarily have to be destructive. Crises are the point when things change, both on the technological side, the political side, and certainly within business, and hopefully culture as well, by the way. And I can talk on it a little bit, but we'll see a focus on meeting this moment with the tools available to us, blockchain and AI, and of course other ones as well, to reinstall trust as a core function of our culture. Each time an agent interacts with another agent, it may very well be the first time. So, what sort of trust assumptions will they take? And in a world where you're operating from high trust, if you start with the principle of trust, it compounds over time faster. If you have to establish trust, well, you've just lost to any other competitor which had that principle of trust as its basis. So this is why blockchain is so important. You don't know you need trust until you really need it, and then it's too late. So it's better to just operate from a first principle standpoint of having trust rather than saying, "Oh, I'll get to trust when I've lost it." It's too late then.
And so how do you boil down exactly the service that Pact is offering?
We originally were positioning ourselves as a WordPress for Web3. And that was just pure blockchain play. AI, ChatGPT really hadn't arrived. I mean, AI, of course, has been here for 60 odd years. And a lot of the sort of groundbreaking science that we're seeing today was science that existed for a while. It's just chips that are now actually making it manifest instead of theoretical. But when we started as a WordPress for Web3, our goal was to connect these ascending nations all around the planet to each other and to sort of first world capital, because we do believe that talent is distributed equally around the globe, but unfortunately, access to capital and to trusted infrastructure wasn't. So our concept was just snap together different sort of blockchain Lego pieces into the platforms that you want for anything from a bank all the way down to, a laundromat or a local grocer, what have you. Because as long as the contract is on chain, you can trust the flow of value, you can trust the reputations that are also on chain, and you can even trust what we built was an issue resolution system. This is so undeniably the future that it doesn't make sense for us to think of the internet in the same way anymore, which means WordPress, which was running anywhere between 60 percent and at its peak running about 90% of the websites on the planet. Websites may not even be a thing to the same degree, and certainly snapping together blockchain Lego pieces when you can type a prompt into a chat box and have a website pop out. We were behind the times, and so were so many other startups and companies. Just overnight, all of a sudden, the entire playing field of what the internet was and how it's built changed. So we had a sort of come to Jesus moment. We had to look at each other, look at our reflections in the mirror, and go, can we compete in this game? And the great thing about new games is everyone's kind of starting from the same point. So we tooled up, really hit the books hard, looked at GitHub, Stack Overflow, everything that was coming out, scouring Twitter and Reddit, and sort of autodidactically tried to get as close as we could get to a PhD in AI, generative AI building as soon as possible. We did end up pivoting from a WordPress to Web3 approach to prompt to build a fully vertically integrated AI business. If you have a front end, but no back end dashboard and tooling to handle your marketing, to see a chart of your growth, to manage your services, you don't really have a full business. You have kind of a cart, but no horse. So we built that as well. And then, of course, all that exists on blockchain so you can trust the infrastructure.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about why you're solving this problem? Why is it that, is there a catalyst event that you feel puts you on the road to where you are now? Like if you were to say that there was an experience that you had, whether it was professionally or personally, that got you started. And I'm talking like kind of before all of this. I'm thinking even from a technical point of view, what made you interested in like the technology of infrastructure?
Basically, I was a screenwriter and an executive, and then also progressive politics. I was grassroots chair for Generation Obama Los Angeles. They were responsible for the Shep Ferry Hope poster that's in the Smithsonian. And the running through line was always, how can we get the people who are the most value creators into positions where they can create value for everybody else. And unfortunately, in Hollywood, it almost runs on the exact inversion. It used to be that way. And I was very fortunate to work with someone by the name of Alan Ladd Jr., since passed on. But this is the man who greenlit the original Star Wars, did Thelma and Louise, Braveheart, Blade Runner, Police Again, some of just the all time great films. And he was someone who protected the creatives from the suits, from the sort of machinery, so that they could be creative. And in doing so, when you give creatives free reign, you get some of the best movies of all time.
So kind of like a liaison slash advocate in a way? Who
Exactly.
who
Exactly.
he understood both sides of the table, their needs and the challenges and the opportunity for, let's say, the suits and the creatives, and it could help them work in harmony by being an intermediary of sorts.
By being an intermediary and also by being a guardian, because famously in Star Wars, the suits wanted to shut the production down multiple times. And you have a
I'm
7 foot
sorry to hear
tall.
that.
Oh yeah, they had a 7 foot tall walking dog piloting a spaceship. Laddie, which was his nickname, he made it very clear, "You're not going to take this movie away from George. You're not going to shut this down. You'll have to fire me first." And that sort of championing of creatives allows creatives to create the value that, of course, a suit cannot begin to understand because that's a very specific worldview. And even Laddie, of course, didn't understand it in full, as he famously said after he had his pitch meeting with George on a Saturday morning. He said to his brother who was waiting outside his office, "I think I either just greenlit the biggest successful movie of all time or the biggest flop." And obviously it turned into Star Wars. That's when we saw more sort of corporate takeover of a creative industry, and Hollywood accounting became more and more and more of a thing. And for those who don't know, Hollywood accounting is the phenomena where a studio or production company will adjust their books, adjust their accounting to such a degree that famously New Line Cinemas said to Peter Jackson, the writer, director, and producer of the Lord of the Rings franchise, "I'm sorry, we just didn't make any money on these movies. We can't pay you your gross." So these are the types of things that blockchain fixes. Can I find the cutting edge of building and try to build a better system? In my lifetime, there have been three massive sort of computing upgrades or computing stack revolutions. First one was personal computing, and that's when hardware and software met, and then it showed up on our desk. The second time was Web 2, and that's when fiber optic and browsers met, and that showed up on what was already on our desk. And the third time was you had smartphones and app stores meet. That was the mobile revolution. And this is the next one, blockchain and AI. And this one's bigger than all of them because the difference there was we got a better tool, a more powerful tool. This is the first time where independently an intelligence will be superior than us as human beings at organizing information into a constructive format. And that's what humans do better than any other entity on the planet. So that's why I think that this is not just an interesting tech revolution, but this is civilizational. They're trying to make it so that it can't be evil, that it can never escape, and that it will never make a bad decision. And that's impossible. That is just unfortunately completely impossible to basically say we can project out into the future every single thing. It's like erasing a child and saying that child will never make a mistake in its life. It'll be a perfect human being. What we can do instead is we can create incentive systems and architectures where they counterbalance, just like a market, the superintelligence that we live in today, where information is organized by all of these forces operating collectively, even though they're not necessarily explicitly aligned. They are working in an alignment. That's what we're trying to do with AI and blockchain. Give it a place where it can live in a trusted fashion, give it reputations that are part of that trust that live on chain, and then have those informational exchanges exist in a tokenized format so that the trust continues to build. And if one thing gets too far out of whack, there's going to be a natural pushback from the market forces represented by AI rather than some human being saying, you shouldn't do that. Well, if I'm waving my finger at a lion saying you shouldn't do that, I'm in the jungle. that's a problem. If you're doing that to something that's a super intelligence, that's a bigger problem.
When you think about AI agent adoption and how it will accelerate over time, what are some of the signals that you're looking for to see how that will start transitioning and how that will impact kind of the markets and the technology at large?
The reason I bring it up is I can now build by just typing in a WhatsApp group. And when I type into a WhatsApp group or even my own DM, that's communicating to an agent. And then that agent is communicating to me and it's saying, oh, go take a look. It's done. And while it may not be perfect the first time, sooner rather than later, I get exactly what I want. That's my personal sign that, yes, the technology is improving to such a degree that it's mind blowing. Here's when we're going to hit the singularity when AI, or not AI, but when basically any form of technology at the highest level merges with human beings. And that has been shockingly accurate. So I just follow the trend lines not linearly, but I go like, all right, it's just going to keep looping up hockey stick growth. But then the very last one, this just happened yesterday, Shenzhen, China, which is where most of the robots are built. It's kind of like the robotics hub, and they're focused on basically weaving AI into every fabric of life. For me, try to tune in to this because this is what's going to chart the course for the future, probably for the rest of my life. And so when I think about AI agents, I'm trying to train my own, not just to be a better office worker, better sending emails, better making pitch documents or writing code. That's all important. That helps me now. But I'm trying to, in some sense, train a companion that at some point is going to be a representative of me in this additional layer, this additional dimension where it's talking to all of these other AI agents and hopefully in alignment with me is through having to execute on a trusted layer. But this underlying tech is an essential thing that we need to incorporate into this civilizational pivot that we're inhabiting.
When you think about this next iteration of Pact, let's say 3 years from now, 5 years from now, what do you think will be the problem that you're solving then that you feel like you're being pulled towards?
I would like to say that in 3 to 5 years, I don't expect to be running Pact. So what we're releasing shortly, we've been pushing and I've been doing tests and we're about to start releasing it to our sort of internal community of builders is something called Project Silo, PSILO. And really what it is, very simple. Blockchain can be a place where you have a non-custodial escrow wallet. You're trusting the blockchain to execute the holding of value and the release of that value when certain conditions are met. And we now realize that with these AI agents, we can modify some of the core technology that we had been, which was a non-custodial escrow wallet, but also with something called MPC, multi-party compute, where you break the key to unlock that wallet into three different pieces, store them in three different places. So if somebody tries to attack it, you can't get access to it. But when the contract executes, the shards of that key come back together and then you can unlock it. We're appropriating that now for this approach where the AI agents can do agent to agent escrow, agent to human escrow, and then still the human to human escrow also works. But this means agents can hire agents. So this is that concept of how do we achieve alignment via blockchain as the underlying infrastructure. And since everyone's going to have reputations, there's a new blockchain standard, relatively new. They were really releasing it around December. It's called ERC 8004. Agents now have wallets, and those wallets come with reputations because everything's executed on the blockchain. So we're just trying to build small pieces. If you want to go big, go small. If you wanted to shut down the world, you could try to nuke it all, or you could just have a virus called COVID and the world shuts down, and that is more transmissible. What we're trying to do is make something that's positively transmissible. And then ideally, what we're going to do last but not least is take a small percentage and then redistribute that percentage to the buyer and the seller and the platform with our own token. Well, now every agent is aligned to do what that ecosystem is pointed towards because when it wins, they win because they hold that token. It's like you're playing a game, except the game is life. And I really encourage anybody who is looking at the challenges of the day and getting, a little bit stressed, and it's understandable. And I don't knock anyone for that. Look at this industry as one where you could potentially have an outsized impact. somebody's going to change the world in these spaces with something that seems very small, and yet you'll nudge it in somewhat one way or another. You don't have to be Sam Altman. You don't need to be, Dario Amodei. Although if you are them and you're listening, thank you guys for hoping the future and pushing things forward. Small acts can ripple out very far. So I'd encourage everyone to, throw your hat in the ring if you're intrigued.
And where can people find you?
So, Pakt.world is where you can see a beta of what we're cooking with the prompt to build. We're going to launch Silo AI, PSILOAI.com, as its own standalone for that non custodial escrow wallet for AI agents. I'm on X. I almost called it Twitter just because, look, my lack of hair, it's Twitter to me. So it's Azabazaz, AZZAB, AZAZZ. It's impossible to find, but I'm sure it can be in show notes or something. I'm always, always, always happy to entertain, engage anybody who reaches out with curiosity, intelligence, and ethics. And I think that ethics is a critical component. There is a very real sense of some technologists not operating under a computer is a bicycle for the mind mentality that Steve Jobs espoused, where it's to enhance everyone's life and uplift. We hear a lot of talk about the K-shaped economy. And in San Francisco, there are many, many folks, and not just San Francisco, but there are a lot of, it's a cluster where they basically are already thinking in terms of a permanent underclass, the always will have and the always will not have, the haves and the have-nots just enshrined in stone. I would encourage people to, again, think about if you were building a world in which you didn't know what side of that K-shaped economy you would go up on, how would you build it? Would you even want to live in a K-shaped economy? There's a philosopher named John Rawls, Rawlsian Veil of Ignorance, and he says, if you were going to be put on the earth and you didn't know where you would land, what earth would you want to be on? This is kind of the moment we're in right now, where we actually are working with technology that's going to build an earth. But after it gets built, we probably as humans won't have as much influence as we are accustomed to having. It's not like, oh, vote somebody new and they'll be the leader of the free world, president of the United States of America, or premier of China or whomever. It's going to be AI, most likely. I don't think that's a doomerism at all. I think that if we handle this moment right, will flourish. There'll be very little disease, if hopefully none. There'll be almost limitless energy. A lot of social ills that are due to scarcity will be eliminated if we do this right. Not to be utopian, but this can be a wonderful tool, and I look forward to figuring out ways to use it well, and also figuring out how to work with builders who want to use it well.
Well, thank you so much for your work and for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on. I know I can be long-winded about this stuff, but I'm just passionate. This is truly a wonderful time to be alive. It's always a wonderful time to be alive if you're a builder and you can find your other builders, and I've been fortunate to find some. So look forward to meeting more always.